Ah, mishpacha, mishpacha, mishpacha. That's a good one. We need that. We need mishpacha. Okay, guys. So we had a busy Shabbos. We had a Shabbaton with like 40 visitors from out of town spending Shabbos at the shul. A lot of mattresses all over the place. A lot of teenagers. It was very nice. We also had a bat mitzvah on Sunday, and we had a wedding on Sunday night. So Baruch Hashem, we like more simchas, more happy occasions. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. I want to do an overview of this week's Torah portion, and then I want to go into a little bit of detail. I'm not sure how long I could go today, but I will go as long as I can, given the circumstances. All right. So here is the Torah portion is called Baloscha, and I'm going to give you a short version of Baloscha. All right. Baloscha means when you will raise up, and it's talking about when you will raise up the flames on the menorah. Aaron is commanded to raise the light of the lamp of the menorah, and the high priest, that's what he does, he lights the menorah, and the tribe of Levi is initiated into the service of the sanctuary. Anyone with us is a Levi? Any Levium here? No? Just a bunch of worker bees? Okay. We read about the special mitzvah of the second Passover, Pesach Sheni. Did I give you a class about Pesach Sheni a couple weeks ago? Yes. So that story is found in this week's Torah portion. The people say, why should we be deprived of the mitzvah of Passover? And Hashem gives them another chance. And that's because they were ritually impure. We read about how the people are dissatisfied with the bread from heaven, the manna, and demand that Moshe supply them with meat. Moshe appoints the 70 elders, who he imparts his spirit to them, and they're able to assist him in the burden of governing the Jewish people. We read a very curious story of how Miriam, Moshe's older sister, speaks Lashon Hara, gossip about her brother, and she breaks out in Tzarath, which loosely translates as leprosy, but Tzarath is a plague that ancient times people would get for speaking Lashon Hara, negatively about people. Moshe prays for her healing, and the entire community awaits 7 days for her recovery. And then they continue on the journey. So that's the Torah portion of Baloscha. It's not as big as the last week's Torah portion, which had 176 laws. It was 176, verses. It was the largest Torah portion of Torah. Last Shabbos, we finished davening like at 12:45. Normally it's like 12 or 12:15. But this week is not as long. I want to start off by talking a little bit about the second Passover. I spoke to you in depth about it last time, but I want to point out that there's two opinions that discuss why were some Jewish people ritually impure. I know that sounds like a nudnik question, like who cares, right? They were impure. Who cares? No, but when we study the Torah, there's deep lessons to be gleaned from every single discussion. So one opinion says it was because they were involved, the fact that they were ritually impure around the time that the Jewish people were supposed to celebrate Passover might have been a sign from heaven that these weren't the most special, holy people. God sort of punished them and they missed out. That's the negative approach. But of course, there's a positive approach as well. that they were ritually impure, not because God was punishing them, but that they were involved in a mitzvah. Some say they were burying Nadav and Abihu, Aaron's children, and that's why they became ritually impure. And there are different reasons, but the bottom line is, according to all these reasons, they say it's because they were doing a mitzvah. And when you're doing one mitzvah, a person, in certain extreme situations, they become disqualified from doing another mitzvah. Like, for example, if there's no one to do a funeral, everyone stops what they're doing. That becomes the most holy thing to do, to honor the dead in Judaism. And in fact, an immediate family member, when they find out that someone passed away, they don't even put on tefillin that day. Why? Your number one job right now is to prepare the funeral, and you have no other responsibility. So people that became ritually impure is because they were involved in a very important mitzvah. And if that's the case, why is it when they did a mitzvah, they would, have even want to do the Karban Pesach? They're like off the hook. Like it's the teacher comes and says to the class, everyone has to take the test, except this person, because this person went to volunteer last night and do a mitzvah somewhere. Okay, you don't have to take the test. What did the kids say? Great, I don't want to take the test. What do I need the test for, right? But you see something very interesting here. These Jews, they were off the hook. They didn't have the obligation to do Passover. But it bothered them. Why should we miss out? They didn't see a mitzvah as a burden. They didn't see a mitzvah as something they have to get done and check off a box. A mitzvah was an opportunity to connect with Hashem. And a mitzvah was an opportunity to connect with one's soul. I don't want to miss that out. I don't want to lose out on that opportunity. Why should we miss out, they tell Moshe. And I think that we could all learn a lesson from that. The way we have to do a mitzvah is not that it's an obligation, that it is a joy. It is our purpose. We finally get to live the reason why Hashem created us. By the way, the Talmud asks the question, so what is a chassid? What is a chassid? Reminds me, of course, of the joke. Two fellows from like middle America go to New York, and one points and says, "What's that?" The other one says, "Hasidim." And the other one says, "Yeah, Hasidim too, but what are they?" Anyway, what is a chassid? I know, corny joke. What is a chassid? The Talmud tells us what a chassid is. And it's not necessarily someone that has curly sidelines. The Talmud says a chassid is a person that does lifnim mishurat hadin, more than the law requires. So the Torah has a certain requirement. You have to do X, Y, and Z to be a good human being. A chassid says, yeah, of course I'm going to do what I have to do. But that's not enough. I want to do more. A mitzvah is not a burden. A mitzvah is an opportunity to connect with God. A mitzvah is an opportunity to connect with my soul. That is what a chassid is. I know that I only have to give 10% to charity, but I want to give 15%. Why? Because charity brings me joy and it gives me my purpose. Lifnim, more mishurat hadin, than the strictness of the law. So I think we can learn that lesson from those people in the desert. I also want to take a minute and talk about the story of Miriam. So it says that Miriam speaks about Moshe. Why would Miriam, who loved his little brother, have to speak gossip? It seems very un-Miriam-like. Not only that, Miriam took care of Moshe. All of a sudden she has problems with him. There are many commentaries that discuss why Miriam was speaking negatively about Moshe. And they all basically come to one point. It had to do with Moshe's wife, Zipporah. And this is when everyone leans in. Ooh, a husband and a wife? We want to hear the details. Are they fighting? Are they arguing? What's happening? Which brings another question. How can we talk about the story? Isn't the story Lashon Hara? Is the Torah allowed to say Lashon Hara? Anyway, I'm going to put that aside for now. But I'm going to bring, when it comes to understanding the Torah, we always have to go to the most commonly accepted commentary in Judaism. And who is that? Do you know? What's the most accepted commentary in Judaism? Very good, Rashi. So let's start with Rashi, okay? What? No, I'm trying. Is my screen full? That's what I'm trying to do. Hold on. It should be like a full screen, no? I don't know. Not sure what's wrong here. Let's see. Okay. So Rashi comes along and tells us it had to do with his wife, Zipporah. Rashi calls Zipporah the term Cushite. Now, Cushite means the dark one or the black one. Was Miriam talking about Moshe's wife because she was black? That doesn't seem very progressive. What exactly does that mean? So Rashi explains it was actually Cushite means beautiful. Who coined? Okay, let's do it this way. Who black is beautiful? Who coined the term? What if I told you it was said by Miriam, Moshe's sister, about Moses' wife, Zipporah? And she's called a Cushite, which means a black person, but it is actually a term of endearment, and it means beautiful. Just like as a person of obvious complexion is universally recognized, so too Zipporah had an outstanding beauty that when she walked in a room, it's like she stood out. So I would say the term black is beautiful is coined from the Torah. You never thought about it that way. So she's talking about Moshe's wife in a complimentary way. And Miriam found out that Moshe had separated from his wife. Why? He had to be a prophet. And a prophet didn't know the next time that God's going to speak to him. Because of that, he wanted to be ritually pure the whole time. So he didn't make any, have any relationship with Zipporah. He separated from her. And Miriam, the big sister, got involved. Why did Moshe withdraw from his wife? God also speaks with me, Miriam says. Miriam was a prophetess. God also speaks with me. So, and I'm still married. Why shouldn't my brother be married? Rashi emphasizes that she was motivated by concern and love. She didn't intend to be insulting to her brother. But since she was discussing Moshe's private life with other people, with Aaron, that was called Lashon Hara, and she got saras. And because of that, she got the leprosy and she had to leave the camp. So that's the most accepted opinion. There's a commentary known as the Baal HaTurim, and he says that the word Hakushais, or the Kushite, has the same numerical value as the phrase Yifas Mare, which means beautiful of appearance. And the Baal HaTurim says that when Miriam called Moshe's wife black, she was saying it in the most complimentary ways, because Kushite in Hebrew, the numerical value is 736, and that number is also the numerical value of Yifas Mahareh, beautiful of appearance. Actually, someone just asked me the other day, are Jews racist? True story. Are Jews racist? Someone actually asked me this question the other day. I said, absolutely not. On the contrary, the Torah speaks of someone who's black as a beautiful person, as I just shared with you. Yifas Mara, 736. Kushite, 736. Now, there's another opinion that says, no, they weren't talking about Tzipporah, Moshe's current wife. There's another medrash that says that when Moshe ran away from Egypt, he ran away for 60 years. No one knew where he was. At some point, he married the queen of the Kush, of the Kushites, and he became the king for 40 years. Oh yeah, by the way, Moses was a king for 40 years. We forgot to tell you. But that's what the medrash says. Now, when the medrash says, believe it or not, he was running, he needed to go, and he never even was intimate with her. He just married her, but he was never with her, whatever. But that's the Rashbam. The Rashbam says that Miriam sort of finds out that Moshe was married to someone else for 40 years, and she started chattering about it. Is this interesting, or should we go to another topic? What do you guys think? I don't want to just do... Good? Okay. All right. Now, others were saying that what the criticism of Moshe was, that why did you marry a non-Jewish woman? Miriam was like, listen, my sister-in-law, Zipporah, is awesome. But what's with Moshe marrying a non-Jewish woman and converting her? There's so many Jewish people, and you're going to marry a non-Jewish? We have a shidduch crisis. There are so many single Jewish ladies, and you're going to go marry a non-Jew? So some opinions say it was about that. Now, that opinion would seem very harsh to Moshe. That's pretty harsh, I think. You know, you don't get involved in other people's decisions. And in Judaism, a real convert is a really beautiful thing. So we don't, like, it's hard to think that Miriam referred to that being the problem. But actually, another opinion says along these lines that the criticism wasn't for Tzipporah, but was for this queen that he married for 40 years, you know, back between the ages of 20 and 80. That's what it's referring to. The Rebbe brings down different opinions that say that Miriam didn't say anything wrong, actually. He only spoke from love and compassion for his brother and his sister-in-law. There was no judgment. There was no ill feelings. I see my brother is doing something. I don't agree. I care about him. I'm going to talk about him because it's bothering me, because I really love him. As the Rebbe points out, that also is lashon hara. When you just talk about other people and your intention might be pure. By the way, my wife and her sister Connie, they were like chatting on the couch the other day, and they asked an interesting question. Is she? They said, if it's just processing, is it really gossiping? And they came up with the term, it's process. We're processing, not gossiping. Well, it's a very cute term, and that's what you could say Miriam was doing. She was just processing. She loved her brother. She loved her sister-in-law. She was just processing. No, processing is Judaism is not an encouraged thing. We have to refrain from lashon hara. Even if your intentions are good, you should not be talking about people. And that's the bottom line. Anyway, my friends, any questions so far in this week's parsha? So the answer is that even though you think you're just processing and you think you're not gossiping, talking about people is a no-no. That's it. It is gossiping after all. And we have to train ourselves not to talk negatively about people. Well, I'll tell you, that's another problem. The Torah says you're not allowed to lie, so that's a separate problem. But I just said lashon hara about you in front of all these people, so now I have to ask for forgiveness. I guess we're just processing, not gossiping. We're studying. Yeah, I hear you. But there's other ways to learn. We have to it's a very thin line from learning to gossiping, you know? And it normally starts with good intentions. That suggests that Moses had 7 wives. The Medrash, yeah, there are several mesh. He disappeared for 60 years, you know? A lot could happen in 60 years. So we don't know if they're all true. When I say true, we could learn something from them, but some of them contradict each other. All right? Okay. Remember I was talking about the people who got contaminated by burying the dead and they missed out on the Paschal sacrifice? I'll share with you the Mishnah that gives different opinions. Rabbi Yishmael says they were the ones who were carrying Yosef's coffin. Can you imagine? Moshe, here we went carrying Moshe's coffin. I'm sorry, Yosef's coffin, which got carried out of Egypt, his bones. And just because we're doing a mitzvah, we miss out. Rabbi Akiva says that they were Mishael and Elitzaphan, who were contaminated themselves, were burying the bodies of Nadav and Avihu, and that was Aaron's 2 sons that died. Rabbi Yitzchak said if they were Joseph's pallbearers, they had ample opportunity to purify themselves. If they were Mishael Mishael and Elitzaphan, they also could have purified themselves. There was enough time. So who were they? People who contaminated themselves for the sake of a mace mitzvah, a charity case. A person who had no one else to bury them, had no family, no friends, a real loner. We have an opportunity to do one of the greatest mitzvahs when we bury such a person. That's who it was. And then the Rebbe has an interesting talk on this as well. He says, well, if God is all-knowing, why did God wait for the Jewish people to, like, some of them to miss out on the sacrifice and then request it and then allow it? God knows everything. He should have made the Torah perfect without this possibility that some people would miss the Paschal offering. How do we explain it? And the Rebbe explains it represents the power of teshuvah, power of returning. That Hashem allowed it to play out this way to teach us that we could always return to God. And we could rectify our past and our failings by transforming them. And actually the sins become mitzvahs. And this could be derived from the Torah itself, since the Torah, which defines what is desirable and undesirable in God's eye, cannot regard a failure to fulfill a divine commandment as something positive. So the fact that Hashem allows a person to sin in the first place, and then only if you sin, you could do teshuvah, so Hashem preemptively makes us susceptible to sin. That's why I hear people talking about other people, they're gossiping, and they're talking about, you know what this one did, you know what that one did, and people get all surprised. How could this person do this? How could that person do that? And I see it very, very differently. The way I see it is, we're supposed to sin the way we were made. We're supposed to fall and make mistakes. When someone sins, we shouldn't get all excited. It's reality. It's terrible. You know when we should get excited? When someone overcomes the urge to sin. That is offensive. So people who make mistakes. We're predispositioned to make mistakes. It's unfortunate. We have to try not to. It's unfortunate. But that shouldn't draw our attention. Our attention should be drawn to look at this person. He was wired in his DNA to fall down, to make mistakes. And look, he overcame it. That's amazing. And that's my spiel for this week. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
I have a question, but it's unrelated to the class.
That's fine.
Are you still planning to go to the chamber?
Oh, I'm not sure. Still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, me too.
I have to study the calendar. I have a big event. Matisyahu event ends on the 10th. And there may be a wedding in my family, and I'm waiting to find out when the wedding is, and then I can make the decision. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be in touch. And anyone who's thinking about going should definitely go because it's an amazing program. That's all I can say. Yeah. Yeah.
One day, because I want to go to the National Gallery to see the art.
Oh, that's an amazing.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I have an artist
Oh,
So I just wanna go to the museum one day and I have to figure out, would I go early, you know, that kind of
I
thing.
mean, my opinion is go a day early and stay, or to stay a day late. The program's gonna be so packed. You're not gonna want to miss anything in that program. You get your and it's not inexpensive. So
It's very expensive.
right, so get your money's worth, as they say.
Yeah, it's, I can't believe it's almost as much as going to Israel.
Yeah, I didn't even look at the price list.
It's really expensive, and that's dealing with that too. Okay.
Right. What's the cost? What is the cost? By the way, I didn't even look at it yet. What is the cost?
Well, it depends if you sign up for every day, 4 days, 3 days. Are you sharing a room? Do you want your own room? But you know, it's anywhere from 15 to 30.
Wow.
But, you know, it's from 15 to 3,000. You know, it could be 15, 16, 17, 24, 29, depending on what level.
Right,
And
right.
then there's the plane ticket. Wow.
Yeah,
But I
but
could only do it if it by payment plan.
right. I guess one of the ways I look at this event is that if you look at the lineup of the speakers, if you ever like thought to yourself, hey, I want to go hear Marnus Friedman. All right, you go, you're gonna pay $50 to get in on a ticket on a speaker like that. All right, you ever want to speak, you listen to this one, that one, this entertainer, that. If you align it all up and then you talk about the hotel and the 5-star food, it's actually a pretty good deal. if you if you look about it that way, yeah.
No, no, I talked to Crystal Rebecca here for us and married to
Yeah.
family.